President John Dramani Mahama's ultimatum to government appointees: declare assets by March 31st or face sanctions. Welcome back to the Bold African Voice, BAV, where we bring you the latest insights and critical analysis on Africa's political landscape. I'm Abdul Karim Kargbo, born and raised in Africa. In today's video, we'll be discussing a major move by President John Dramani Mahama of Ghana, as he issues a strong ultimatum to his appointees to declare their assets by March 31st. What does this mean for Ghana's fight against corruption, and how does it compare to other African nations? Stay tuned for an in-depth discussion and a comparison of asset declaration efforts across the continent. In a recent and significant move aimed at bolstering transparency and accountability in public office, President John Dramani Mahama of Ghana has issued a stern directive to his appointees, demanding that they declare their assets by March 31st of the current year or face serious sanctions, including potential removal from office. This initiative underscores the president's commitment to combating corruption, a long-standing issue that has plagued Ghanaian politics. This video seeks to critically analyze the implications of this ultimatum, compare it with similar asset declaration efforts across the African continent, and explore the forward-looking approach President Mahama advocates in his campaign against corruption. The importance of asset declaration in Ghanaian politics. The asset declaration regime in Ghana is enshrined in Article 286 of the 1992 Constitution and the Public Office Holders Declaration of Assets and Disqualification Act, Act 550. However, the enforcement and effectiveness of this law have been widely criticized over the years. In his recent address, President Mahama stressed that the act of declaring assets publicly is an essential mechanism for both preventing corruption and holding public officials accountable. While the commitment to curbing corruption is commendable, Mahama's statement highlights the persistent issue of corruption in Ghana. He stated, "Corruption by nature is insidious and thrives under the cover of darkness. The more light is shown on it, the more likelihood that it would be fought successfully." By taking the bold step of presenting his completed asset declaration forms to the Auditor General in a public setting, the president has injected a level of transparency into a process that has historically lacked public scrutiny. However, as Mahama acknowledged, the current system is not foolproof, with challenges surrounding the validation and authenticity of the declared assets. The need for constitutional reform to strengthen the asset declaration regime and ensure its relevance to current times was emphasized. This also raises important questions regarding the capacity of the Auditor General's office to effectively authenticate the declarations, a challenge that many African nations face in the fight against corruption. Comparing Ghana's efforts with other African countries. Ghana is not alone in its efforts to address the corruption epidemic that has plagued many African countries. Across the continent, leaders have adopted asset declaration regimes, but the success of these measures has been mixed, often hampered by a lack of political will, ineffective enforcement, and limited public access to declared information. Nigeria's asset declaration regime. In Nigeria, asset declarations for public officials have been mandatory since the country's return to democratic governance in 1999. However, the effectiveness of these declarations has been questioned. While President Muhammadu Buhari, during his tenure, made his asset declaration public, the process often lacks the transparency and accountability necessary for it to act as a deterrent to corruption. Moreover, the lack of a robust system for monitoring and verifying the declared assets has undermined the potential of these declarations to curb corruption. South Africa's approach to asset declarations. South Africa has one of the most robust anti-corruption frameworks on the continent, with the public protector playing a critical role in investigating corruption, including asset declarations. Despite this, the country still faces high levels of corruption, particularly at the local government level, where asset declarations are often not rigorously enforced. The case of former South African President Jacob Zuma, whose tenure was marred by corruption scandals, illustrates the challenges even a nation with a strong anti-corruption regime can face when political elites lack the will to enforce accountability. Rwanda's anti-corruption measures Rwanda has earned international recognition for its efforts to combat corruption, with President Paul Kagame positioning asset declarations as a key element of the country's anti-corruption strategy. The country has made strides in promoting transparency, with public officials required to submit annual asset declarations. Rwanda's approach also includes a public database of declared assets, allowing citizens to access information on public officials' wealth. While the system is far from perfect, Rwanda's commitment to transparency has made it a model for other African nations, illustrating the effectiveness of publicizing asset declarations in combating corruption. The case for a forward-looking approach. President Mahama's call for a more robust and transparent asset declaration system is a step in the right direction. By advocating for reforms that would require asset declarations to be published both before and after individuals serve in public office, Mahama is addressing the issue of unexplained wealth that often arises from illicit gains. This forward-looking approach is crucial in the context of a rapidly changing political and economic landscape in Ghana and Africa as a whole. However, Mahama's statement also highlights a deeper challenge that many African countries face: the institutional capacity to enforce these policies effectively. Without a strong, independent body to monitor and validate asset declarations, public officials may continue to evade accountability. For the asset declaration regime to be genuinely effective, it must be coupled with reforms in the judicial system, the strengthening of oversight institutions, and the political will to hold officials accountable. Challenges in implementation, lessons from the past. The implementation of asset declaration policies in Ghana and other African nations has often been undermined by several key factors. 1. Weak institutional frameworks. Many African countries lack the institutional capacity to monitor, verify, and enforce asset declarations. In Ghana, the Auditor General's Office faces challenges in authenticating the information provided, a common issue across the continent. 2. Political will. The success of asset declaration regimes hinges on the political will to enforce them. Many African leaders, once in power, are reluctant to hold their peers accountable for fear of exposing their own illicit wealth. This lack of political commitment has led to a situation where asset declarations are seen as a mere formality rather than a tool for genuine accountability. 3. Public engagement and transparency. Another critical challenge is the lack of public access to asset declarations. Without transparency, these declarations risk becoming meaningless. Public access to declared assets can serve as a powerful deterrent, as citizens can hold public officials accountable based on the information provided. 4. Constitutional reform. Mahama's call for a constitutional review process is a crucial step in addressing these challenges. Strengthening the legal framework surrounding asset declarations will not only enhance their effectiveness, but also ensure that they are aligned with modern-day challenges. The road ahead, a critical moment for Ghana and Africa. As President Mahama's deadline approaches, the world will be watching to see whether Ghana can overcome the challenges of political will, institutional capacity, and transparency to make asset declarations a powerful tool in the fight against corruption. The success of this initiative could set a precedent for other African nations grappling with similar issues. At the same time, Ghana's example serves as a reminder of the need for broader institutional reforms across the continent. Asset declaration is only one piece of the puzzle in the fight against corruption. For these efforts to be effective, they must be part of a larger strategy that includes judicial reform, strengthening anti-corruption agencies, and fostering a culture of transparency and accountability at all levels of government. As Mahama himself noted, the asset declaration regime should not only serve as a tool for holding public officials accountable, but also as a preventive measure to deter corruption before it takes root. With the eyes of the continent on Ghana, the country has a unique opportunity to lead the way in creating a more transparent, accountable, and corruption-free Africa. As the deadline for asset declarations approaches, Ghana faces critical questions about the future of the regime and the broader anti-corruption fight. Will President Mahama's bold move be enough to inspire widespread compliance? How will the results of this initiative shape the future of governance in Ghana and across Africa? As we continue to monitor developments, it is essential to recognize that asset declarations alone cannot solve the corruption crisis. The entire system must be reformed, with institutional strength and public involvement at the forefront. The role of civil society in supporting transparency and accountability. Civil society organizations, CSOs, and the media will play a pivotal role in ensuring that President Mahama's Asset Declaration Initiative becomes more than just a symbolic gesture. For asset declarations to be truly effective in the fight against corruption, they must be subjected to public scrutiny. Transparency and accountability can only be achieved when civil society, journalists, and watchdog organizations have access to these declarations and can actively monitor public officials' wealth before, during, and after their tenure. In Ghana, several CSOs, such as the Ghana Integrity Initiative, GII, and the Center for Democratic Development, CDD, have been at the forefront of advocating for anti-corruption measures and transparency in governance. These organizations can be instrumental in pushing for legislative reforms that make asset declarations public and in pressuring government officials to comply with the law. Their role in educating the public on the importance of these declarations and the dangers of unchecked corruption cannot be overstated. Moreover, Ghana's vibrant media landscape, including both traditional outlets and emerging digital platforms, has a crucial role in investigating and reporting on public officials' wealth. Investigative journalism, which has led to the exposure of corruption in various parts of Africa, can serve as a powerful tool in ensuring that public servants comply with the asset declaration regime. It is through the combination of a vigilant civil society, an empowered media, and an engaged public that asset declarations can go beyond mere paperwork and become a real deterrent to corruption. Regional and continental cooperation in tackling corruption. While Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative represents a significant step towards greater accountability, the fight against corruption cannot be won by individual countries alone. Corruption is a transnational issue, often involving cross-border illicit financial flows, money laundering, and the complicity of multinational corporations. Therefore, Ghana's efforts must be part of a broader regional and continental strategy to tackle corruption, with African nations working together to strengthen enforcement mechanisms. The African Union, AU, and regional bodies such as the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, have taken steps to address corruption in the region. The African Union's Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, adopted in 2003, provides a legal framework for member states to adopt measures to combat corruption, including asset declarations and the establishment of anti-corruption agencies. However, the implementation of these agreements has often been inconsistent, with many African countries failing to fully comply with the Convention's provisions. One of the main challenges is the lack of political will among African leaders to hold their peers accountable. As long as political elites are reluctant to punish corruption, regional cooperation on anti-corruption measures will remain ineffective. However, there are notable examples of success. The cases of Rwanda and Botswana, which have shown strong leadership in anti-corruption efforts, demonstrate the potential for African countries to work together in the fight against corruption. Ghana could take inspiration from these examples and push for greater collaboration with neighboring countries to create a more cohesive and robust regional anti-corruption framework. The impact on Ghana's reputation and economic growth. As Ghana continues to battle corruption, the success or failure of the Asset Declaration Initiative will have significant implications for the country's reputation, both domestically and internationally. On the one hand, a successful asset declaration regime could enhance Ghana's standing as a leading democracy in Africa, positioning the country as a model for other nations to follow. On the other hand, if the initiative fails to garner meaningful results, it could further erode public trust in the government and contribute to the perception that Ghana, like many African countries, is unable or unwilling to tackle corruption effectively. The economic implications of corruption are also significant. Corruption diverts public resources away from vital sectors such as education, healthcare, and infrastructure, and undermines investor confidence. Ghana, as one of the fastest-growing economies in West Africa, could achieve even greater prosperity if corruption is curtailed. According to the World Bank, corruption has cost developing countries an estimated $1.26 trillion annually. By improving transparency, accountability, and governance, Ghana can position itself as a more attractive destination for both foreign and domestic investment, driving further economic growth and development. However, it is important to recognize that anti-corruption efforts must be part of a broader strategy to strengthen institutions and improve governance. Asset declarations, while important, should be complemented by other measures, including judicial reforms, stronger law enforcement agencies, and the establishment of independent oversight bodies. Only with a comprehensive approach will Ghana be able to achieve lasting results in its fight against corruption. The challenge of political and public support. One of the greatest challenges to the success of asset declaration reforms in Ghana will be the level of political and public support they receive. While President Mahama's announcement is a positive step, it remains to be seen whether it will result in a genuine commitment to transparency and accountability across all levels of government. For asset declarations to be effective, they must be supported by both the political elite and the public. Public support for the initiative will depend on several factors, including the level of trust in government institutions and the perceived sincerity of the president's efforts. If the public perceives the Asset Declaration Initiative as a political move or as a tool for settling political scores, its effectiveness will be undermined. Conversely, if the initiative is seen as part of a broader, long-term strategy to improve governance, it could garner widespread public support. Politically, President Mahama's directive has the potential to strengthen his position as a leader committed to fighting corruption. However, he will need to ensure that the asset declaration process is free from political interference, and that those who fail to comply with the rules face genuine consequences. As Mahama himself pointed out, charity begins at home, and he must demonstrate that his government is willing to hold its own appointees accountable to set the tone for the broader public. Looking to the future, a call for holistic anti-corruption strategies. As Ghana approaches the deadline for asset declarations, it is important to recognize that this initiative is just one part of a larger, multifaceted strategy needed to address corruption effectively. While asset declarations can help increase transparency, they must be complemented by a range of other measures aimed at strengthening institutions, promoting good governance, and ensuring that public resources are used efficiently. Key steps for the future include 1. Strengthening judicial independence. The judiciary must be free from political interference and equipped with the resources and authority to prosecute corrupt individuals, regardless of their position or political affiliation. 2. Establishing independent anti-corruption agencies. Institutions such as the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, CHRAJ, in Ghana, must be empowered to investigate and prosecute corruption cases without fear or favor. 3. Public sector reforms, a focus on merit-based hiring and promotion, as well as increased salaries for public servants, can reduce the temptation for corruption and improve overall government efficiency. 4. Improving civic education. A well-informed public is crucial for holding government officials accountable. Civic education programs that teach citizens about their rights and how to demand accountability will strengthen democracy in Ghana. 5. Regional cooperation. Collaborative efforts with other African nations to address cross-border corruption and illicit financial flows will create a stronger, more united front against corruption across the continent. As Ghana embarks on this critical phase in its anti-corruption journey, the steps taken will not only shape the future of governance in the country, but could also serve as a beacon for other African nations struggling with similar challenges. The role of technology in fighting corruption. In the modern era, the fight against corruption cannot be won without the effective use of technology. Ghana, like many other African nations, faces challenges in enforcing asset declaration systems due to the lack of a centralized, digitized system for monitoring public officials' wealth. This is where technological innovation can play a crucial role in streamlining the asset declaration process, improving transparency, and ensuring greater accountability. Digital platforms for asset declarations can facilitate real-time submission and verification of declarations, making it easier to track changes in the wealth of public officials over time. By leveraging technology, Ghana can create a system where asset declarations are publicly accessible, securely stored, and continuously monitored. This would not only allow citizens to easily access asset declarations, but also enable anti-corruption bodies to cross-check the accuracy of the data, reducing the likelihood of fraudulent claims. In addition to transparency, the use of technology can enhance investigative capacity. Data analytics tools can be used to identify unusual patterns of wealth accumulation, cross-referencing asset declarations with financial transactions and lifestyle changes. This can help uncover illicit financial flows or the unexplained wealth of public officials. Furthermore, technology can be used to facilitate the collection of anonymous tips from the public, allowing citizens to report corruption without fear of retaliation. Ghana can take inspiration from countries such as Estonia, which has implemented a fully digitized government system that ensures transparency and reduces opportunities for corruption. The success of Estonia's e-government model, which has made public service functions such as voting, tax filing, and asset declarations digital, shows the transformative power of technology in fighting corruption. The international community's role in supporting Ghana's efforts. While Ghana has made strides in tackling corruption domestically, the international community also plays a significant role in supporting these efforts. Ghana has partnered with various international organizations, such as the United Nations and the World Bank, to develop and implement anti-corruption strategies. These partnerships have facilitated knowledge sharing, capacity building, and technical support, helping Ghana improve its governance structures. In particular, the role of international financial institutions and donor countries in supporting Ghana's anti-corruption agenda is crucial. International funding for anti-corruption initiatives, such as the development of robust asset declaration systems or the strengthening of Ghana's anti-corruption agencies, can make a substantial difference. By providing technical assistance, training, and funding, the international community can help Ghana build the necessary infrastructure to enforce anti-corruption laws effectively. Furthermore, international cooperation in the fight against corruption is essential, as corrupt officials often move illicit wealth across borders. In this context, Ghana can benefit from the African Union's efforts to combat illicit financial flows, such as the establishment of the African Financial Action Task Force, AFATF. By collaborating with other African nations and international stakeholders, Ghana can track and repatriate illicit funds, preventing the flight of resources that could otherwise benefit the country's development. The Global Forum on Asset Recovery, GFAR, for example, is an international initiative aimed at enhancing global cooperation to recover illicit assets hidden abroad. Ghana's participation in these international efforts can help ensure that corrupt individuals are not able to evade justice by transferring their wealth to foreign banks or jurisdictions with weak anti-money laundering frameworks. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative as a model for Africa. As Ghana works to implement its Asset Declaration Initiative, it has the potential to serve as a model for other African nations that are struggling with similar corruption challenges. Ghana's commitment to strengthening transparency and accountability in public office could inspire other African leaders to adopt similar measures. The continent as a whole faces persistent corruption issues that hinder economic growth and development, and as such, the implementation of robust asset declaration systems could be a key part of a larger regional effort to tackle corruption. However, for Ghana's model to be replicated effectively across the continent, it is critical that African leaders not only adopt asset declaration systems, but also ensure their implementation is accompanied by meaningful institutional reforms. Simply having a law requiring asset declarations will not solve the problem of corruption if the political will to enforce it is absent. African countries must focus on building strong, independent institutions, ensuring that asset declarations are linked to broader governance reforms, and supporting the creation of regional anti-corruption frameworks. For instance, in West Africa, ECOWAS has made significant strides in addressing regional challenges, but the lack of a unified, region-wide anti-corruption strategy undermines progress. Ghana's leadership in this area could encourage ECOWAS to expand its anti-corruption efforts, focusing not only on individual countries, but also on regional collaboration and shared best practices. By leveraging its position as a model of governance and anti-corruption efforts, Ghana can play a critical role in promoting transparency and accountability across West Africa. The African Union's role in supporting asset declaration systems. The African Union, AU, has made significant strides in promoting anti-corruption efforts across the continent. The African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, AUCPCC, adopted in 2003, outlines the need for member states to establish national anti-corruption laws, including asset declaration systems. While the convention has been ratified by most African nations, its implementation has been slow and uneven. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative provides an opportunity for the AU to strengthen its role in promoting accountability on the continent. The African Union can support Ghana's efforts by providing technical assistance, facilitating regional dialogues on best practices, and helping to monitor the implementation of asset declaration systems across member states. By prioritizing anti-corruption initiatives within the AU's broader development agenda, the organization can play a key role in building a culture of accountability across Africa. Moreover, the AU's Peace and Security Council, PSC, could take a stronger stance on holding governments accountable for corruption, recognizing its detrimental impact on stability and development. Corruption, after all, often fuels political instability, which can lead to violence and conflict. The AU can leverage its diplomatic and peacekeeping mechanisms to help ensure that corrupt leaders are held accountable, creating a more stable environment for growth and development. What lies ahead for Ghana and Africa's fight against corruption? As Ghana embarks on this critical phase of enforcing asset declarations and addressing corruption, the journey ahead will require constant vigilance, political will, and cooperation at both the national and regional levels. While the asset declaration regime is an essential tool in the fight against corruption, it must be viewed as part of a comprehensive strategy that includes judicial reforms, strengthened anti-corruption agencies, and enhanced civic engagement. For Ghana, the success of this initiative will set the stage for deeper structural reforms that can foster a culture of accountability and good governance. The key to success will be to ensure that asset declarations lead to tangible outcomes, including the prosecution of corrupt officials and the recovery of stolen assets. For Africa, Ghana's leadership in this area has the potential to serve as a beacon for other countries grappling with similar challenges. However, to make a lasting impact, African leaders must move beyond symbolic gestures and implement substantive reforms that not only address corruption, but also promote the democratic principles of transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. As we continue to observe Ghana's progress, the continent must unite in the fight against corruption, ensuring that asset declarations are not just a tool for accountability, but a cornerstone of a new, more transparent and accountable Africa. Engaging the youth in the fight against corruption. One of the critical aspects of President Mahama's Asset Declaration Initiative and the broader anti-corruption agenda is ensuring that it resonates with the younger generation. In many African countries, the youth represent most of the population, and their engagement in governance issues is crucial for sustainable change. The youth must be empowered to demand accountability and transparency from their leaders, as they will ultimately inherit the political, economic, and social systems shaped by today's policies. In Ghana, the growing awareness and activism among young people present an opportunity to foster a new generation of leaders committed to combating corruption. Mahama's call for asset declarations can be the catalyst for greater civic engagement, particularly among students and young professionals. Civic education programs, social media campaigns, and youth-led initiatives could be employed to ensure that the public, especially the youth, understand the importance of asset declarations in fostering good governance. The role of youth organizations and universities in Ghana cannot be overstated. These institutions are ideal platforms for organizing discussions, workshops, and campaigns to raise awareness about corruption and its detrimental effects on the nation's development. For instance, the Ghana Youth and Students Movement Against Corruption, GSMAC, has already been instrumental in advocating for anti-corruption measures, and it is organizations like these that could play a leading role in ensuring the success of the Asset Declaration Initiative. Additionally, the digital landscape provides an unprecedented opportunity to engage young people. Social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook can be used to spread information about asset declaration requirements, as well as to hold public officials accountable. Online petitions, digital campaigns, and viral movements can create immense pressure on government officials to comply with transparency measures. In this regard, Ghana's youth have the potential to lead a new wave of digital activism that makes the fight against corruption a matter of national pride. Ghana's Asset Declaration Regime and the Role of International Law. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative is not just a national issue, but also an international one, particularly in the context of global efforts to combat corruption and illicit financial flows. As President Mahama noted, the declaration of assets can serve as a preventive measure to combat corruption before it takes hold, and this initiative aligns with broader international standards set by organizations like the United Nations, UN, the World Bank, and Transparency International. The UN Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, adopted in 2003, emphasizes the importance of asset declarations and encourages member states to develop legal frameworks that ensure transparency and accountability in public office. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative is therefore not only in line with international law, but also reinforces the country's commitment to upholding global anti-corruption standards. Furthermore, Ghana's efforts to combat corruption can also benefit from international cooperation in tracking illicit financial flows and recovering stolen assets. The World Bank's Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative, STAR, has helped countries worldwide reclaim billions of dollars in illicit wealth, and Ghana could partner with international bodies to strengthen its ability to trace, freeze, and repatriate assets illicitly acquired by corrupt officials. In addition, Ghana's role in the African Union, AU, and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, offers the opportunity for regional collaboration on anti-corruption initiatives. These bodies have developed legal frameworks and mechanisms for addressing corruption, and Ghana's leadership in asset declarations could inspire other countries in the region to adopt similar measures. The AU's emphasis on good governance and the rule of law can be bolstered by Ghana's example, encouraging neighboring nations to improve their own asset declaration regimes. Public trust and the importance of follow-through. A key aspect of President Mahama's push for asset declarations is the necessity of follow-through. For the initiative to succeed, the Ghanaian government must not only enforce the deadline, but also ensure that sanctions are applied to those who fail to declare their assets. This is where the government's commitment to accountability will be tested. If individuals who do not comply with the asset declaration rules are not held accountable, the entire initiative will lose its credibility and public trust will be further eroded. Moreover, the public's trust in the process will depend heavily on the perceived fairness of the system. If asset declarations are used selectively to target political opponents or dissidents, rather than as a comprehensive tool for ensuring transparency, it will lead to accusations of political maneuvering and undermine the legitimacy of the initiative. Therefore, the government must demonstrate that the asset declaration process is not only about punishing corruption, but also about creating a level playing field for all public officials, irrespective of their political affiliation. The inclusion of civil society organizations in the monitoring and verification of asset declarations could help increase public confidence in the process. By allowing independent organizations to audit the declarations, the government would be sending a strong message that the process is transparent, credible, and free from political bias. Furthermore, the public's involvement in holding leaders accountable would contribute to a culture of transparency and accountability, reinforcing the democratic foundations of the country. The implications for future governance in Ghana. Looking forward, the success of the Asset Declaration Initiative has the potential to reshape governance in Ghana. If the process is fully implemented and public officials are held accountable for their wealth, it could serve as a model for other African nations, inspiring a continent-wide push for transparency and anti-corruption measures. However, this will only be possible if Ghana's political leadership remains committed to making the asset declaration regime a core part of the country's governance culture. As Ghana enters this crucial phase of political and governance reform, the country's future leaders will need to prioritize the fight against corruption not as a political slogan, but as an essential part of building a prosperous and equitable society. If President Mahama's call for asset declarations results in meaningful reform, it could lay the foundation for a stronger democracy, enhanced economic development, and greater trust in public institutions. The real test, however, will be whether this initiative can be sustained beyond President Mahama's tenure. For Ghana to achieve lasting reform, asset declarations must become a standard practice that transcends political cycles. This will require the establishment of institutional safeguards, including an independent and empowered Auditor General's office, and a clear legal framework that ensures all public officials comply with the asset declaration laws. The need for regional leadership in anti-corruption efforts. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative is an important step, but it must be viewed as part of a broader regional effort to combat corruption. African countries are interconnected, and corruption does not respect national borders. Illicit financial flows, tax evasion, and money laundering are regional issues that require collective action. By taking a leadership role in asset declarations, Ghana has the opportunity to set the tone for regional anti-corruption efforts, particularly in West Africa. The country's success could inspire neighboring nations such as Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Liberia, which face similar challenges, to adopt and strengthen their own asset declaration systems. Additionally, Ghana can use its influence in ECOWAS to push for the development of regional frameworks that address cross-border corruption and ensure that public officials' assets are fully transparent. At the continental level, Ghana's leadership in asset declarations could play a significant role in strengthening the African Union's efforts to combat corruption. The AU's Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption provides a framework for African countries to follow, but it remains to be seen whether African leaders will fully commit to the principles outlined in the Convention. Ghana's example could serve as a blueprint for the rest of the continent, demonstrating that transparent and accountable governance is not only possible but essential for Africa's future. Ghana's Asset Declaration as a catalyst for institutional reforms. As Ghana presses forward with its Asset Declaration initiative, it is essential to recognize that the implementation of such a system must be accompanied by broader institutional reforms to ensure its long-term effectiveness. While the Asset Declaration framework provides a crucial step toward transparency, its success hinges on the strengthening of various institutions that facilitate the enforcement of laws, monitor public officials, and hold them accountable. One of the key institutions involved in the asset declaration process is the Auditor General's Office, which plays a central role in receiving and verifying the declarations. To increase the effectiveness of the process, The Auditor General's office must be fully equipped with the resources, independence, and capacity to audit the declarations and detect discrepancies. The institution must also be free from political interference, as this is crucial for its ability to perform its functions impartially. Strengthening the role of the Auditor General will contribute to building a culture of accountability in public office. Additionally, Ghana must continue to develop its anti-corruption agencies, such as the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, KHRAG. These institutions need more autonomy, enhanced funding, and broader powers to investigate corruption and enforce sanctions against public officials. Strengthening the capacity of these institutions will help ensure that the asset declaration regime is not merely a formality, but a genuine tool for curbing corruption. Challenges of implementation, political resistance, and institutional weakness. Despite the government's commitment to asset declarations, several challenges persist that could hinder the success of this initiative. One of the major challenges is political resistance. In Ghana, as in many African countries, the political elite may have vested interests in preventing the full disclosure of their wealth. This resistance could come in the form of delays in asset declaration submissions, manipulation of the process, or outright defiance of the deadline. Political leaders must show that they are genuinely committed to transparency, and for this to happen, they must lead by example. If the political leadership does not adhere to the rules, it becomes more difficult for the public to take the initiative seriously. For asset declarations to be effective, Ghana must ensure that the rules apply equally to all public officials, including high-ranking political leaders, regardless of their political affiliation. Additionally, the implementation of the asset declaration process requires overcoming institutional weaknesses. Ghana, like many African nations, struggles with challenges such as limited capacity, insufficient funding, and a lack of technological infrastructure in public institutions. Without adequate resources, institutions tasked with overseeing asset declarations may be unable to verify declarations accurately or enforce compliance. Therefore, it is imperative for the government to prioritize investment in the capacity building of institutions responsible for asset declaration enforcement. This could include the introduction of modern data analytics tools, training of personnel in forensic accounting, and the establishment of a digital platform for submitting and monitoring asset declarations. These measures would enable more efficient tracking and auditing of declared assets, reducing opportunities for corruption to thrive unnoticed. The role of political will in sustaining anti-corruption reforms. For any anti-corruption initiative to succeed, political will is paramount. In the case of asset declarations, it is not enough for President Mahama to issue an ultimatum. The entire political system must be willing to enforce the law and hold appointees accountable. This requires leaders to demonstrate their commitment to fighting corruption through concrete actions, such as ensuring that those who fail to declare assets face tangible consequences. One of the key tests of politics will come when high-profile individuals or powerful figures are implicated in non-compliance. If the government is reluctant to act against well-connected or influential individuals, it will send a signal to the public that the Asset Declaration Initiative is merely a cosmetic measure rather than a genuine tool for combating corruption. Conversely, if individuals are held accountable for failing to meet the asset declaration deadline, it will help build public trust in the system and demonstrate that no one is above the law. In addition to holding public officials accountable, political leaders must work to ensure that the Asset Declaration Initiative is sustained beyond their tenure in office. This requires institutionalizing the process and ensuring that it remains a nonpartisan issue, so that future governments continue to uphold the same level of transparency and accountability. Long-term impact on Ghana's democratic development. The Asset Declaration Initiative represents a critical turning point for Ghana's democratic development. If successfully implemented, it has the potential to strengthen democratic institutions, improve governance, and enhance public trust in the government. Transparency and accountability are cornerstones of any functioning democracy, and the asset declaration process can serve as a tool for building a more equitable political system. Furthermore, asset declarations can act as a deterrent against corrupt practices, especially when public officials know that their wealth will be scrutinized. The transparency that asset declarations bring could help deter officials from engaging in corrupt activities, as they would be held accountable for any unexplained wealth or assets gained through illicit means. As a result, Ghana could see a reduction in corrupt practices, greater public trust in government institutions, and an overall improvement in the functioning of democratic systems. The long-term impact of the Asset Declaration Initiative also extends beyond political stability. By reducing corruption and ensuring that public resources are used for their intended purpose, the government can allocate more funds toward critical sectors such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and social services. This could have a direct positive impact on the country's development, leading to improved living standards for Ghanaian citizens and a more vibrant, sustainable economy. Moreover, the Asset Declaration Initiative could become a model for other African countries, particularly those with similar governance challenges. If successful, Ghana could play a leadership role in promoting transparency and accountability across the continent, influencing other African nations to adopt similar measures. This would mark a significant step toward creating a more transparent and accountable African political landscape. Potential setbacks and areas for further improvement. Despite the positive momentum surrounding the Asset Declaration Initiative, several setbacks could undermine its success. First, the issue of political will remains crucial. If the leadership in Ghana lacks the resolve to enforce asset declarations and hold officials accountable, the initiative could falter. Public perception of the initiative will also depend on how consistently and fairly it is implemented. Second, the challenge of asset concealment remains a concern. Corrupt officials may attempt to hide their wealth through creative means, such as funneling money through third parties, using offshore accounts, or investing in assets that are difficult to trace. While asset declarations are a step in the right direction, they must be accompanied by stronger mechanisms for tracking and auditing wealth. The government must ensure that the system is robust enough to detect discrepancies and uncover hidden wealth. Additionally, public involvement in the asset declaration process is essential. While the government can take steps to enforce compliance, civil society organizations and the media must also play an active role in scrutinizing the declarations. Investigative journalism can expose cases of hidden wealth or discrepancies in asset declarations, providing the public with the information necessary to hold public officials accountable. A holistic approach to fighting corruption. Ultimately, the success of asset declarations as a tool for fighting corruption in Ghana depends on a holistic approach that combines transparency with strong institutions, political will, public engagement, and regional cooperation. Asset declarations are just one part of the puzzle. To achieve lasting change, Ghana must continue to invest in the strengthening of anti-corruption agencies, the judicial system, and democratic governance. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative represents a critical step forward in the fight against corruption. However, it is essential to remain vigilant and proactive in ensuring that the process is continuously improved, and that it is part of a broader strategy for tackling the root causes of corruption in the country. Expanding the scope of asset declarations, broader implications for public accountability. While President Mahama's directive for appointees to declare their assets by March 31st is a significant step in the right direction, it is essential to examine whether the scope of the asset declaration system can be expanded beyond government officials. To truly transform governance and fight corruption, Ghana might consider broadening the asset declaration requirements to include not only political appointees, but also members of parliament, local government officials, and even public sector employees in positions with discretionary power over public funds. This expansion would ensure that public officials at all levels of governance are held accountable, creating a culture of transparency that extends throughout the entire public sector. Furthermore, broadening the scope of asset declarations to include a wider range of individuals would minimize the risk of corruption trickling down from the top tiers of government to the grassroots level, where it can have significant consequences for local development and service delivery. By ensuring that all public servants are subject to the same scrutiny, Ghana could create a more inclusive system of accountability, fostering a stronger sense of trust in the government's commitment to transparency. This could also set an example for other African countries struggling with corruption at local levels, encouraging them to adopt similar frameworks for accountability. Integrating asset declarations into a larger anti-corruption strategy. Asset declaration is only one piece of the anti-corruption puzzle, and its success must be part of a more comprehensive, multifaceted strategy that includes other important reforms. For the initiative to have a lasting impact, it must be integrated into a broader anti-corruption framework that includes strengthening law enforcement agencies, enhancing public sector integrity, and ensuring that anti-corruption policies are rigorously enforced. In Ghana, the establishment of a robust legal and institutional framework is vital to supporting the Asset Declaration Initiative. This includes reforms to the judiciary to ensure that it is independent, well-funded, and capable of effectively prosecuting corruption cases. Without strong, impartial judiciary, asset declarations may become just a symbolic exercise, with no real consequences for those found to have illicitly acquired wealth. Moreover, an effective asset declaration system should be complemented by measures to improve the efficiency of anti-corruption agencies like CROJ and the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO. These institutions need to be empowered with the necessary tools and resources to investigate corruption allegations, track illicit wealth, and take legal action against offenders. Public sector reforms are also crucial for reducing corruption. Ghana must prioritize a merit-based approach to hiring and promotion in the public sector to ensure that positions are filled with qualified individuals who are committed to public service. By eliminating nepotism and cronyism in public office, Ghana can ensure that government appointments are based on competence rather than political connections, reducing the opportunities for corruption to take root. The integration of asset declarations into a larger anti-corruption strategy will also require collaboration with the private sector, particularly with financial institutions that can help detect and prevent illicit financial flows. Banks and other financial service providers can play an important role in identifying suspicious transactions and ensuring that public officials do not hide their wealth through illicit means such as money laundering. Addressing the challenges of enforcement and sanctions. The key to the success of any asset declaration initiative is not only in its creation, but also in its enforcement. As President Mahama emphasized, public officials who fail to meet the asset declaration deadline will face severe sanctions, including possible removal from office. However, for this to have a real impact, it is crucial that Ghana develops a clear and consistent system for applying sanctions, ensuring that penalties are both deterrent and fair. Ghana's legal system must be strengthened to provide the necessary tools for enforcement. This could include the establishment of an independent body tasked with verifying asset declarations and investigating discrepancies. This body should be empowered to launch investigations, gather evidence, and recommend legal actions against those found to be in violation of asset declaration rules. To increase compliance, Ghana could introduce penalties for non-compliance with asset declarations, such as fines, suspension from office, or even imprisonment in cases of deliberate concealment of wealth. However, for these penalties to be effective, there must be consistency in enforcement and the assurance that no public official is above the law. Moreover, an independent and robust system for publicizing the asset declarations and their subsequent verification will create a powerful deterrent. If the public can track and monitor asset declarations in real time, it will be much harder for individuals to hide wealth obtained through illicit means. Publicizing asset declarations would also encourage greater civic engagement, as citizens can hold their elected officials accountable by comparing their reported wealth to their actual financial standing. The role of international partners in supporting enforcement. While Ghana's government must take the lead in ensuring the enforcement of asset declarations, international partners also have a significant role to play in strengthening enforcement mechanisms. The global nature of corruption means that illicit financial flows often transcend borders, making it difficult for any single country to address the issue on its own. International organizations such as the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, Transparency International, and the World Bank can assist Ghana in developing and implementing mechanisms to track and recover illicit wealth. These organizations have established frameworks for addressing corruption and can offer technical assistance, expertise, and funding to help Ghana enhance its enforcement efforts. Furthermore, international cooperation in the fight against corruption can be facilitated through the implementation of multilateral agreements like the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC. This treaty encourages signatory countries to take concrete actions to prevent corruption, including the adoption of asset declaration systems, the investigation of illicit financial flows, and the recovery of stolen assets. Ghana can leverage its position within these global frameworks to build partnerships with other countries, strengthening its ability to monitor and trace illicit wealth across borders. Countries with successful asset declaration systems, such as Botswana, South Korea, and Norway, can serve as models for Ghana as it seeks to refine and strengthen its own system. By learning from the experiences of other nations, Ghana can avoid common pitfalls and develop an asset declaration regime that is both effective and sustainable, educating the public, building a culture of transparency and accountability. For the Asset Declaration Initiative to succeed in the long term, it must be accompanied by efforts to build a culture of transparency and accountability in Ghana. This involves not only holding public officials accountable, but also engaging citizens in the fight against corruption. Education and awareness-raising campaigns are essential to fostering a culture where corruption is not tolerated. Citizens must be made aware of the importance of asset declarations and how they can hold public officials accountable for their wealth. Civil society organizations, grassroots movements, and community leaders can play an important role in educating the public about their rights and the need for transparent governance. Additionally, incorporating anti-corruption education into school curricula and university programs will help develop a generation of young people who are committed to upholding the principles of transparency and integrity. By empowering the next generation with the knowledge and tools to combat corruption, Ghana can build a stronger foundation for future democratic governance. The importance of political and institutional stability for long-term reforms. The long-term success of the asset declaration system in Ghana depends not only on its immediate implementation, but also on the political and institutional stability within the country. For reforms to be sustained, Ghana must ensure that the political environment remains conducive to governance, transparency, and accountability. The risk of political instability, which can undermine institutional reforms, is ever present, particularly in countries where political competition is fierce and rivalries can result in governance challenges. Ghana has traditionally been seen as a beacon of democracy in West Africa, thanks to its peaceful elections and relative political stability. However, as with any democratic nation, the political landscape can shift, and new governments may not always maintain the same level of commitment to anti-corruption measures. For the Asset Declaration Initiative to have enduring impact, it must be institutionalized in a way that transcends any one political regime. This means that the process of asset declaration should be embedded into the legal framework and the broader governance culture, so it is not contingent upon the political whims of those in power. Institutional resilience is equally important. Ghana needs to ensure that its institutions, such as the Office of the Auditor General, the Chechraje, and the EOCO, are insulated from political interference. Ensuring that these institutions remain independent and well-resourced will allow them to conduct their duties without fear or favor. Furthermore, strengthening public trust in these institutions is critical. If the people believe that the institutions tasked with enforcing asset declarations are functioning impartially and effectively, there will be greater public support for the initiative, and the fight against corruption will be bolstered. Lessons from other countries. Successes and pitfalls in asset declaration. Systems looking beyond Ghana's borders, there are valuable lessons to be learned from other countries that have implemented asset declaration systems with varying degrees of success. These lessons can guide Ghana in refining its approach to asset declarations, ensuring that the system not only addresses current challenges, but is also adaptable to future needs. Botswana, a model for asset declarations in Africa. Botswana offers one of the most successful models of asset declaration in Africa. The country's asset declaration system is viewed as an essential tool in its fight against corruption, and the government has shown political will to enforce the rules. Public officials in Botswana are required to declare their assets upon taking office, and these declarations are reviewed by the Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, DCEC, which has the mandate to investigate and prosecute corruption cases. Botswana's success is rooted in its political stability, strong institutions, and transparent governance. The country has fostered a culture of public service where corruption is not tolerated, and officials understand that they will be held accountable for their actions. The DCEC has built a reputation for independence and effectiveness in investigating and prosecuting corruption, which has further strengthened the public's trust in the asset declaration system. For Ghana, the key takeaway from Botswana's experience is the importance of institutionalizing the asset declaration process and ensuring that the institutions involved are independent, transparent, and well-funded. By following Botswana's lead in strengthening enforcement and making asset declarations public, Ghana could significantly enhance the effectiveness of its own system. Nigeria. Challenges in asset declarations and the need for reform. Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, has had an asset declaration system in place for years. However, the system has been marred by numerous challenges, including incomplete declarations, the lack of effective enforcement mechanisms, and political interference. Despite mandatory asset declarations for public officials, corruption remains rampant, and many officials manage to evade scrutiny through complex financial arrangements. One of the key lessons from Nigeria's experience is that merely having an asset declaration law is insufficient if there is no real enforcement mechanism. Nigeria has struggled with a lack of political will, institutional weaknesses, and a deeply entrenched culture of corruption that has hindered the effectiveness of asset declaration laws. For Ghana, this underscores the need for robust monitoring and enforcement systems. Without the proper checks and balances, the Asset Declaration Initiative risks becoming just another formality. Therefore, it is crucial for Ghana to invest in the proper infrastructure, both human and technological, to monitor and verify asset declarations effectively. South Korea. Transparency and technology in asset declarations. South Korea is another example of a country where asset declarations have played a crucial role in reducing corruption. In South Korea, public officials are required to declare their assets, which are then publicly disclosed. The country has successfully implemented a system where asset declarations are digitized and accessible online, allowing the public and the media to monitor officials' wealth. The success of South Korea's system lies in its transparency and the use of technology to streamline the process. By digitizing asset declarations and making them publicly available, South Korea has ensured that officials cannot easily hide their wealth. This model could serve as an excellent example for Ghana as it seeks to strengthen its asset declaration system. By leveraging technology, Ghana can improve the accessibility and accountability of asset declarations, ensuring that citizens have real-time access to information about their leaders' wealth. The lesson here for Ghana is clear. Digitization and public access to asset declarations are crucial components of a successful transparency initiative. Not only will this create a deterrent against illicit wealth accumulation, but it will also foster greater public engagement in the process, ensuring that citizens are actively involved in holding their leaders accountable. Moving toward a more transparent Africa. As Ghana moves forward with its asset declaration initiative, It can set an example for the rest of Africa. The country's leadership in this area could inspire other African nations to adopt similar systems, driving a continent-wide movement toward greater transparency, accountability, and governance reform. However, for this to happen, the initiative must be part of a broader regional strategy that involves collaboration between African countries. Regional bodies like the African Union, AU, and ECOWAS have a critical role to play in promoting the adoption of asset declaration systems and ensuring that they are effectively implemented across the continent. Furthermore, the role of civil society organizations, CSOs, and the media in promoting transparency cannot be overstated. These organizations can act as watchdogs, ensuring that asset declarations are not only made, but also thoroughly scrutinized. By supporting the efforts of these organizations, Ghana can create an ecosystem of accountability that extends beyond the government and includes all sectors of society. In this regard, the African Union's Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, AUCPCC, offers a promising framework for regional collaboration. If Ghana, along with other African nations, fully embraces the principles outlined in the AUCPCC, the continent could see a significant shift in the way public office is viewed and managed. The road ahead, challenges and opportunities for Ghana. As Ghana moves toward the March 31st deadline for asset declarations, the nation stands at a critical crossroads. The asset declaration system has the potential to be a game changer in the fight against corruption, but its success depends on several key factors: political will, institutional capacity, public involvement, and international cooperation. Ghana's government must demonstrate its commitment to transparency by enforcing the law fairly and consistently, while ensuring that institutions responsible for monitoring asset declarations are equipped with the resources and independence to perform their duties. Likewise, public participation and the involvement of civil society will be crucial to ensuring that asset declarations are scrutinized and used as a tool to hold leaders accountable. As Ghana sets an example for the continent, the country must also focus on the broader issue of institutional reform. Fighting corruption requires more than just asset declarations. It requires commitment to strengthening democratic institutions, fostering a culture of transparency, and ensuring that public resources are used for the benefit of all citizens. The role of Ghana's youth in strengthening the asset declaration process. As Ghana continues to refine and implement its asset declaration system, the involvement of the youth in the fight against corruption becomes an essential component of the process. Ghana's young population, many of whom are tech-savvy and socially conscious, could serve as a powerful force for promoting accountability and transparency in governance. In recent years, there has been a surge in youth activism across Africa, with young people mobilizing for political change, social justice, and economic empowerment. This wave of activism provides a valuable opportunity for Ghana to engage its youth in the anti-corruption campaign, particularly by raising awareness about the importance of asset declarations. One way the youth can play a role is by actively participating in public forums, debates, and discussions surrounding the asset declaration process. Universities and youth organizations can serve as platforms for these dialogues, where students and young professionals can critically examine the effectiveness of the initiative and push for necessary reforms. These efforts can be complemented by digital campaigns that use social media platforms to raise awareness, share information, and hold public officials accountable. Moreover, the digital fluency of Ghana's youth provides an opportunity to use technology as a tool for greater transparency. Young people can develop innovative applications and online platforms that allow citizens to access asset declarations, track public officials' wealth over time, and even crowdsource data to help verify the accuracy of these declarations. By utilizing technology in this way, the youth can create a more transparent and participatory system that goes beyond the government's official channels. Additionally, educating young people about the role of asset declarations and how they fit into the broader fight against corruption is crucial for creating a culture of accountability in Ghana. Schools and universities can integrate anti-corruption education into their curricula, ensuring that the next generation of leaders understands the importance of asset declarations and the broader implications of corruption for national development. Public perception and trust, the key to effective implementation. The success of the Asset Declaration Initiative in Ghana ultimately depends on public perception and trust. For the initiative to be effective, citizens must believe that the government is genuinely committed to fighting corruption and that asset declarations are not simply a formality. If the public perceives the initiative as a political tool or as a strategy to target specific individuals or political opponents, the entire process risks losing legitimacy. Therefore, the government must ensure that the asset declaration process is both transparent and inclusive. One of the most effective ways to build public trust is by making the asset declarations publicly available and accessible. This could involve publishing the declarations online, where citizens can easily view them, compare them, and raise questions if they notice any discrepancies. Moreover, to further build trust, the government must ensure that those who fail to comply with the asset declaration law face genuine consequences. This will demonstrate that the initiative is not just symbolic, but is backed by a legal framework that holds public officials accountable for their actions. The integrity of the process must be upheld by showing that the rules apply to all public officials, regardless of their political affiliation, wealth, or influence. For public trust to be maintained, transparency must be complemented by fairness. The process of verifying asset declarations must be conducted in an impartial manner, free from political interference. Independent bodies such as the Auditor General's Office and civil society organizations must be involved in monitoring the process and ensuring that asset declarations are scrutinized thoroughly. This will help ensure that the Asset Declaration Initiative becomes a tool for genuine accountability rather than a political exercise. Building a strong legal framework for anti-corruption reforms. The asset declaration system in Ghana should not be seen in isolation, but rather as part of a broader legal and institutional framework aimed at combating corruption. While asset declarations are an important tool for transparency, they must be accompanied by strong laws that govern the prosecution of corruption, the recovery of stolen assets, and the protection of whistleblowers. Strengthening the legal framework for anti-corruption efforts is crucial to ensure that asset declarations lead to meaningful outcomes. This includes closing legal loopholes that allow corrupt officials to evade justice. For instance, Ghana should prioritize laws that strengthen the independence and effectiveness of anti-corruption institutions such as the CRAGE, the EOCO, and the judiciary. These institutions must have the resources, authority, and political backing to investigate and prosecute corruption cases effectively. Furthermore, Ghana needs to enhance its whistleblower protection laws to ensure that individuals who expose corruption are shielded from retaliation. Whistleblowers often face threats, intimidation, and even violence, which discourage people from coming forward with crucial information. Strengthening the legal framework to protect whistleblowers will encourage more people to speak out against corruption and contribute to a more transparent public sector. Another key component of the legal framework is the effective enforcement of sanctions. If public officials are found to have concealed assets or engaged in corrupt activities, they must face meaningful consequences. This could include criminal charges, fines, and the recovery of illicit wealth. The asset declaration system must be supported by a legal infrastructure that allows for swift investigation and prosecution of corruption cases, ensuring that wrongdoers are held accountable. Regional and global support for Ghana's asset declaration system. Ghana's efforts to tackle corruption through asset declarations can benefit greatly from regional and international support. As a member of both the African Union, AU, and ECOWAS, Ghana can leverage these organizations to push for broader anti-corruption reforms across the continent. Regional bodies have the power to coordinate anti-corruption initiatives and provide a platform for countries to share best practices, lessons learned, and challenges faced in implementing asset declaration systems. For instance, ECOWAS has been active in promoting good governance and fighting corruption in West Africa. By collaborating with ECOWAS, Ghana can strengthen its asset declaration system through regional agreements and shared resources. ECOWAS member states could also encourage the adoption of similar asset declaration policies in their own countries, leading to a more coordinated and effective fight against corruption across the region. In addition to regional cooperation, Ghana can also seek support from international organizations such as the United Nations, the World Bank, and Transparency International. These organizations offer technical assistance, research, and capacity-building resources to help countries implement anti-corruption measures effectively. Ghana's participation in international forums on anti-corruption can also raise its profile as a leader in governance reform and inspire other African countries to adopt similar initiatives. Sustaining the fight against corruption. The need for continued reform. While the Asset Declaration Initiative represents a critical step in the fight against corruption, it must be viewed as part of a broader, ongoing process of reform. Sustaining the momentum for anti-corruption efforts will require continuous investment in institutional capacity, legal reforms, and political will. As Ghana moves forward, it must be committed to strengthening the institutions responsible for upholding transparency and accountability, ensuring that the asset declaration system remains effective over time. To maintain momentum, the government must engage in regular evaluations of the asset declaration system and adjust as necessary to address emerging challenges. Public feedback, particularly from civil society organizations, will be crucial in identifying areas for improvement. Regular audits, transparency reports, and public consultations will help ensure that the Asset Declaration Initiative remains relevant and effective in the face of evolving political and social landscapes. In the long term, Ghana must work toward creating a governance system where corruption is not just a matter of enforcement but a cultural and societal issue. By fostering a culture of transparency, integrity, and accountability, Ghana can lay the groundwork for a more just and prosperous future. The long-term vision, from asset declarations to comprehensive governance reform. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative can be a pivotal moment in the country's governance trajectory, but for it to have lasting impact, it must evolve into a broader framework for comprehensive governance reform. As the country moves forward with this initiative, it should look beyond the immediate results of asset declarations and focus on the long-term structural changes needed to reduce corruption and promote good governance. Ghana's leadership should consider integrating asset declaration systems into a broader framework that includes public procurement reform, enhanced regulatory oversight, and the strengthening of civil society participation in governance. In addition, there should be a focus on improving public sector wages and working conditions to reduce the incentives for corruption. Addressing corruption at its roots requires creating an environment where public service is seen as an honorable and rewarding profession rather than one fraught with opportunities for personal gain. Moreover, Ghana can also benefit from strengthening mechanisms for public participation in decision-making. The inclusion of citizens in the development, monitoring, and evaluation of policies ensures that governance is not only transparent, but also responsive to the needs of the people. Public consultations, participatory budgeting, and community-based monitoring can all be used to create a more inclusive, transparent, and accountable governance system. Advice to African leaders: prioritizing transparency and accountability. Ghana's asset declaration system, though ambitious, is only one piece of a much larger puzzle in the fight against corruption. For African leaders to foster truly transparent, accountable, and equitable governance systems, they must adopt a holistic approach that goes beyond asset declarations. Here are several pieces of advice for African leaders who seek to build more transparent and accountable governments. 1. Commitment to transparency. Leaders must set an example by publicly declaring their assets, ensuring that the entire public sector follows suit. Transparency should not be limited to asset declarations but should extend to public finances, government contracts, and decision-making processes. 2. Strengthen institutions. Strong, independent institutions are the foundation of any successful anti-corruption initiative. African leaders should prioritize strengthening institutions like anti-corruption commissions, the judiciary, and auditing bodies to ensure they have the capacity to hold officials accountable. 3. Ensuring political will. Political will is the most critical factor in the fight against corruption. Leaders must demonstrate a clear commitment to fighting corruption by enforcing laws consistently and holding corrupt officials accountable, regardless of their political affiliation or status. 4. Involve citizens and civil society. Public participation is essential to ensuring that reforms are not only effective, but also have broad-based support. Civil society organizations, the media, and grassroots movements must be empowered to play a crucial role in monitoring government actions and holding officials accountable. 5. Foster a culture of accountability. In the long term, African leaders must work to change the culture of governance. This includes instilling values of integrity, honesty, and public service among leaders and citizens alike. Education systems must also play a part by incorporating anti-corruption lessons into the curriculum. 6. Pursue regional cooperation. Corruption does not stop at national borders. Regional cooperation among African countries is crucial for tackling cross-border corruption and illicit financial flows. African leaders must work together to establish shared norms, frameworks, and enforcement mechanisms. 7. Use technology for transparency. Leaders should embrace technology to enhance transparency. Digital platforms for asset declarations, public procurement monitoring, and budget tracking can provide real-time information to citizens, increasing government accountability. Summary of key messages. 1. Asset declarations are a vital tool. Ghana's asset declaration system is a crucial step in increasing transparency and fighting corruption. However, its success will depend on its full implementation, transparency, and the willingness of the government to hold officials accountable. 2. Public trust is crucial. For the asset declaration system to succeed, it must be seen as fair, transparent, and impartial. Public trust can only be achieved through the consistent enforcement of rules and the publication of declarations for public scrutiny. 3. Institutional strengthening is key. Effective anti-corruption systems require strong, independent institutions that are well-resourced and capable of monitoring, investigating, and prosecuting corruption. Ghana must ensure that its institutions are empowered to enforce asset declarations and tackle corruption head-on. 4. Youth engagement and civil society participation. Youth and civil society have an essential role to play in fighting corruption. Educating the next generation about transparency and empowering citizens to hold their leaders accountable is crucial for long-term success. 5. Regional cooperation will strengthen the fight against corruption. For real change to occur, Ghana and other African nations must cooperate regionally to establish common standards for asset declarations and anti-corruption measures. This collective effort can help curb corruption and illicit financial flows across borders. 6. Corruption must be tackled at its roots. While asset declarations are important, they must be part of a broader approach that includes institutional reforms, stronger law enforcement, and a commitment to transparency at all levels of government. Ghana's Asset Declaration Initiative has the potential to inspire meaningful reform and set a positive example for the rest of Africa. However, the fight against corruption is not a one-time event, but a continuous journey that requires persistent effort, political will, and the engagement of citizens and civil society. African leaders have an opportunity to build a legacy of good governance that ensures public resources are used for the benefit of all citizens, driving economic development and improving the quality of life across the continent. Thank you for watching this video on the Bold African Voice, BAV. If you found this analysis insightful, subscribe to our channel for more comprehensive analyses of African governance and politics. See you in the next video.